Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Hasvold. I am the 2020 NSDCAR president. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this morning for the Zoom presentation. And in thinking about that, I would bet that if I asked most of you 2 months ago if you'd ever heard of Zoom or had used it, you'd say no. But it seems like that's all we're doing, at least I'm doing all day, every day. I go from one Zoom meeting to another. It's amazing, this technology, how well it works, even using it in our personal lives. Really fascinating. So thank you for taking the time to join us. This is going to be a little bit different presentation than some of the Zoom meetings you've been on. On some of those, you have a chance to see everybody who's on with their screen, what their favorite pajamas are, and what their home office looks like. But because we're expecting about 350 attendees today, we can't possibly make that work, so it's more of a webinar presentation. We're going to do our best to answer all the questions that you have, but again, keep in mind with that many participants, there's no way we'll get to all the questions. So if you've used Zoom before, great. If you haven't, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to love it. Down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little, if you take your mouse down there, a little bar should pop up. You'll have the ability to chat. You can ask the panelists questions. I'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation to try and ask the panelists those questions, and I'll hide as many of those as I can. So that's how you're going to communicate with the chat. Everyone's muted and their cameras are off so we can focus on the panelists. So this isn't going to be the only time we're going to be able to do this. Next Friday, we're going to have Fred Visser here, who is the attorney at White and Bright. He's our association attorney. He's going to talk about some of the new forms that have come out. If we get some time today, I'm going to share with you one of them that's critical that we need to be using anytime we're showing property now, or between buyers or sellers, or even any of our inspections. So I want to make sure that I cover that one at least today, but Fred will go into much more detail next week on that. So make sure you tune in then. And Taylor, who is our GAD, will be on also, talk about some of the politics and what we're doing within the county. So here's how it's going to work today. We have a pretty firm deadline for some of these guys. We're going to have, as you know, Joel Singer, who is the CEO at C.A.R. He's going to come on at 10:20, but before him we have Ernie Dronenburg, who is our county assessor and recorder. And then we're going to follow up with Art Carter, who is the CEO at CRMLS. So Ernie's going to come on in about 5 minutes. Then we'll go to Joel at 10:20. Joel will take probably 20 minutes, and then Art will come on about 10:40 and be on for 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll follow up with some questions and answers at that time. So again, that's how it's going to lay out. If you have questions, make sure that you just submit them through the chat, and we'll get going. Before we do, there's one presenter who isn't going to be on today. We talked about having someone from SBA on to talk about the stimulus package and how that's going to help agents and brokers. That has been a very fluid situation, and as of Monday when the rules came out, a lot of the lenders had decided that they weren't going to participate, because originally what was going to happen was the Treasury said that the loans were going to be at 4%. There'll be a 10-year payback. There was going to be some documentation, and that changed. When it came out, the interest rates were going to be 0.5%, which are great for the borrowers, but lenders looked at that as a losing proposition, and there wasn't going to be enough documentation to protect them. So it was really kind of a battle between the Treasury and the SBA. A lot of lenders decided they weren't going to make loans, put it on hold. So we've been monitoring that situation. Today, brokers are able to apply. Not till April 10th can agents apply for the stimulus, for it's called the Paycheck Protection Program. But I just got an email about 10 minutes ago from our lender who said that they are offering a program. They got so overwhelmed with applications that they're partnering with a company called Cabbage, which you may have heard of, that is going to allow applications to process through them. So sometime during this presentation, I'll share my screen with you and show you the bank and the connection to be able to get information and apply for one of those loans. So we won't have a presenter on from the SBA or Seacoast, but as of about 10 minutes ago, they're packing the game, ready to make some loans. So that's a good thing. So without further ado, it looks like we have Ernie on. So we're going to have James switch over and highlight Ernie Dronenburg. Good morning, Ernie. We got to unmute him.
Good morning. Am I there, Chris?
Yes, you're live, ready to go. Good morning.
Good morning. I see Jordan's picture, but I don't see you.
No.
There we go. All right. I want to thank you first, Chris and Tom, for having me on today. There's a lot of things that we're doing and people are not aware, and there are some things that people would like for us to be doing, but we can't do. So I just wanted to quickly go over what we can do. We are recording notes. We are recording trust deeds and grantees. Anything that we normally record, we are recording. We're doing it electronically. The title companies and escrow companies, we established electronic recording 2 years ago. And so we're having our people in their homes for the most part. We're recording deeds and everything else that needs to be recorded. We are doing things like death certificates, birth certificates, and marriage licenses, and other copies of vital documents, but we're doing it through the mail. It's a mail process that takes a little bit longer, but it gets done. It takes usually 2 to 3 days as opposed to being able to walk in and do it. We are doing assessments. We will get our roll out, and we'll get our roll out on time, and it'll be an accurate roll. So that's being done in homes. Here again, we set up virtual networks for our appraisers to work out of their homes. We have about 10% of our staff working in offices. Those offices are closed to public, but those are the ones where we have machines that can do the printing of vital documents that we can't take the machines to the homes. But so we're getting things done. We're getting them done a little bit slower, but we're getting them done, except the recordings. The recordings are getting done on time. And the appraisals, of course, everybody's really applauding us for getting appraisals done, but we're getting them done. Other issues that we have no timeline as to when we will be back in business as far as being available to the public. But I'm in my den at my home, like most of our people, working from home to get the work done. I wanted to get those facts out, and then I'm sure there's some questions, and I don't know what your process is per se, but we can hold them to the end, or I can take some now. Chris, it's up to you.
We have any questions for Ernie? I don't see any yet. Somebody raised their hand. Nancy raised her hand. Nancy, can you put it in the chat for us? Question, are property taxes due on April 10th?
I was going to mention that, but I knew that'd be the first question.
Yeah.
Property taxes are due on the 10th. That's a statutory deadline, and the only way it can be changed is through the legislature writing a new law. And so the governor has decided not to do anything but allow that to stay in place. Now, the question is, will there be a penalty if people don't pay their taxes by the 10th? And the answer is yes, there will be a penalty. I've talked personally to the treasurer tax collector, and he has said the penalty is automatic and it will be applied. He has the authority to grant relief from the penalty, and he will be addressing that on a case-by-case issue. So my advice to people is pay the penalty. Pay the tax on time. You'll hear people say, oh, well, there's not going to be a penalty. That's not correct. The penalty is automatic and it's 10%. So I would sincerely, and I personally am paying my tax on time.
Okay, another question, thanks Ernie, is from Ron Brownell, who's on your assessment appeals board. When will the assessment appeals be starting?
The assessment appeals will, starting in the normal order. Everything is shut down right now. We can't have an assessment appeals without having a facility, and we can't do it unless there's less than 10 people. And so right now we're shelter in place, and they won't start again until we get back to normal operations of having business in our buildings.
Okay, a couple questions about notaries. I'm on the board of directors at C.A.R, and I know we had a presentation, gosh, last year from the online notaries, which looked really interesting to me and was actually endorsed by C.A.R, slim majority, but endorsed by C.A.R to have online notaries as opposed to wet signatures. I know that there's some talk in the state about that. Are you accepting online notaries? Do you still require traditional notaries?
As we speak today, yes, we are. We are not accepting online notaries. There are 2 bills in Congress, 1 in each house, and if they pass, then we will be going to online notaries. We are gearing up for online notaries so that as soon as it passes, we will then accept it. There are limitations on online notaries, but if somebody is, for example, the state of Virginia, they do an online notary, we know what their laws is, and we will be accepting ones from Virginia. This is almost an hour-by-hour issue waiting for the legislation to go. As I speak today, the answer is no, but it could be yes by the end of the day.
That's about how fast everything's changing these days. So thank you. Another question, I have a seller in Australia. Embassy is closed, closing first part of May. Cannot get a notary in Australia that will be accepted. Cannot do a specific POA. Can you allow virtual signing? Oh, same question. Sorry, I should have read through that. Not allowed yet.
Well, the best way to do that is set up a power of attorney in the United States to take care of that for them. We can't, we do not do international things. And especially right now, we're very limited on what we can do. So they need to set up a power of attorney in the US.
Okay, great. Another question. So to be clear, our escrows are in place now. Should we advise our clients that title will probably be able to record at 5 p.m. on the date of the contract?
I don't understand the question.
You're still on schedule. If escrow is supposed to close next Friday, you're planning on being able to record on Friday.
Yes, I think we close things daily. I think if everything's in line, we should be able to do that. But it's not 5 o'clock, and everything has to be in by 4 so that we can close by 5.
Okay.
We can't instantly close things.
Right. Okay. From Bill Hayes, will commercial property reviews for 2020 assessment year take any consideration for the current economic circumstances, i.e. how many tenants aren't paying rent, things like that?
That's a question for next year's assessment because we're past the lien date. And so right now the answer is no, but we're working on assessments for this year, which reflect the values at January 1 of this year. Next year, that could be a Prop 8 question where there's a reduction in value due to economic circumstances, all depending on what those circumstances are. But that won't affect this year's property tax. It'll affect next year's property tax if it affects at all.
Got it. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming in. Is there anything else that you need you want to wrap up with?
No, except that we appreciate the patience, and I've got to salute my staff. These people are coming in to the 10% are coming into the office. The others are working really hard out of their homes. We're actually measuring their production, and it's equal or greater than when they were coming into the office. That's something that we're looking at maybe in the future about having more people work from home. But it's because they're in the spirit of wanting to get the jobs done. And, I'm really proud of my people.
I think that's going to be a common theme going forward, is that people are going to realize how efficient it can be working out of the house. And I think that one of the positives coming out of this will be that there will be a change in the way business is done. So I'm kind of excited about that part of it.
Well, there's one change that I've been trying to promote, and that is the governor to recognize the real estate industry as something that's a necessity, and that we should be allowed, and I say we because I am a member, should be allowed to operate in the current circumstances as a industry that needs to function. So I wrote a letter to the governor just last week, encouraging him to follow the federal standard that has now allowed us to, on the federal level, be included. And so, I should congratulate the C.A.R. for their work towards getting this done in the federal real estate industry, getting it done too.
Well, you teed it up perfectly, Ernie. We really appreciate your time, because we have Joel Singer, who is the CEO of C.A.R., standing by and ready to go. So we're going to go right from Ernie to Joel. So thank you again, Ernie. Appreciate it. You're on, Joel. Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for inviting me on this call. Just a couple comments, if I could, to open up. One, first and foremost, C.A.R. has been remote now for over 3 weeks for all but a handful of staff who were in 2 weeks ago, but we've been out of the office for more than 2 weeks, 100%. We're also operating at fully capable of fulfilling all the services we've done in the past. In fact, our legal hotline has had a record number of calls. Our call center has had record numbers of calls, and we established this week, even though it's very early on in the process, our Realtor Relief hotline, and that also has been swamped with calls. So I apologize if any of you have had trouble getting through. We now have 12 people working full-time on the Realtor Relief hotline, trying to acquaint you with the programs that are still being defined by the federal government and are now starting to be put in place. But if there are any needs you have from C.A.R., I can assure you, with the exception of delivering certain products, we can meet all those needs. We've established some new courses that are free. We are running webinars every day. Some of you may have been on our webinar going over our new forms. In addition to that, we've done webinars on the relief programs being offered, and we continue to operate at a very high level. In fact, we're operating at a level that is really pretty similar to what we did when we were in the office. So that's one aspect. Secondly, we're obviously very engaged in the legislative activities. The legislature is out and will remain out. They're saying they're going to come back on the 13th of April. I think that's very unlikely. I would think it's much more likely they come back sometime in May. My suspicion is that this will be a quiet legislative year with the exception of anything that deals directly with the COVID-19 situation and anything essential, which primarily will be the budget that the state has to come out with. And I think the state is going to be confronting a significant budget shortfall by the time they get back into session. And we'll be all dealing with that. And on the federal level, NARs have done an excellent job. We are obviously, our federal effort is also geared up. The relief programs this time, unlike last time, are clearly accessible to independent contractors. And that to us was the most significant thing we could do. And we do expect more relief to come through. There will be at least one more bill, and all likely and two more bills as we get into this, into the deeper depths of the downturn, and then start coming out of it, hopefully sometime in summer. And so that's my quick update. I'd be glad to answer any questions or address any particular concerns you have. So please fire away.
Well, let me start because Ernie had mentioned this in his closing comments. I know you guys worked hard with the governor to try and get real estate considered essential service, and the feds came out on Saturday at 5:30. You guys have followed along, and everybody got excited about that, but they didn't read the next paragraph, which said that local restrictions may be tougher and those take precedent. For us in San Diego County, unfortunately, they really haven't been clear about what's going on. They haven't said we are, we're not. So we're a little bit in the dark on that. We're trying to get them to make a definitive answer, yes or no, so at least we have some guidance. Can you shed some light on that?
The action that came out on Saturday from the at the federal level at FEMA was significant. And our concern immediately was that people would misread it and think that being an essential service basically said business as usual. That was never the case, obviously. And I think it was the third sentence in bold on our blast on Saturday night said local conditions are the prevalent ones. The localities, states and localities, can have standards that are tougher than those proposed at the FEMA level. And in any and all cases, our focus has been on the health and well-being of our members, their clients, and our communities. So no matter what, you always have to adhere to the best possible practices, the CDC social distancing guidelines and public health advisories. For most of the state, that means that essential services is not very meaningful. Because it is those local conditions that really prevail. And, from our perspective, the main thing you should be considering as a practitioner are the wishes of your clients. And obviously those change, and you should also not feel compelled to do something, even if your client insists that you engage actively in real estate and it is permitted. You don't have to do that. There's things you can do to say you're not going to participate. So from our standpoint, then the next step was to put out the best practices document. That document is not relevant in all parts of the state at all, because if you're completely shut down, best practices are meaningful, other than the fact that they should all be virtual. But in some parts of the state where you do have fairly broad interpretation, you're operating under the state rule, in fact, there are certainly things you can do if you're compliant with those best practices. And again, please place the interest of your clients, the desires of your clients first. And again, also, if you have particular health concerns, those are relevant also. You have to protect yourself and your health, and that's really our number one concern as a membership organization.
So along those lines, I know that I'm on the standard forms committee at C.A.R., and I know that we got the PEAD form just released 2 nights ago, and I believe it was on Zip Forms yesterday or maybe this morning. Yeah. Questions about that, and that's one of the forms I wanted to talk about today after you're gone. Not wait till next week when our attorney's on, because I think anything that's done between now and then, you need to have that form used for buyers, sellers, inspectors, whoever's going to be attending the property.
Right. And again, there was a typo in that form. Please refresh your browsers. It's been fixed already. So if you're seeing a typo, just refresh your browser in zip form, and it has been corrected. But that form is obviously strongly recommended in your transactions. The old addendum, obviously, from 2 weeks ago, is obviously, part of the transactional packet. And again, we're finding that there are deals that are going through. They are being transacted. It's difficult in some parts of the state. For example, in the Bay Area, no showings are allowed other than for vacant homes. And there's restrictions around closings that will require people to use these forms and to negotiate between buyer seller to allow certain variances from the typical closing inspections and other things as well. The biggest problem from our standpoint is just the logistics of moving. People are, moving vans are problematic, and people are finding it very, very difficult. So we're seeing in our data, and it's just, starting to show up a lot of transactions being put on hold, so to speak, and those documents are an attempt to allow that negotiation to occur within a structured framework rather than as a one-off each time.
Okay, and I know I've seen a couple of people raise hands here. We don't have the ability to unmute somebody and ask a question, so make sure you're putting them in the chat box for us. We'll try and get those. I'm reading those and sending those to Joel, so use the chat box, please. I know that on Monday, the COVID form was updated, and a new form called the NUCC, it came out. We're going to be talking about those again next week, but there's a couple suggestions here about updating those forms. Make sure you're looking online, updating your libraries, because the new forms two new forms came out Monday, 2 came out Wednesday, this PEAD and the listing agreement addendum. So make sure you're asking your broker about those. Go on the C.A.R. website and check those updates. A lot of questions about the unemployment and the PPP. Anything you can share with us on that?
Yeah, the brand new rules on the PPP came out yesterday, and contrary to what was in the legislation, the interpretation out of Treasury is that if you're a broker, you cannot take compensation that you pay to independent contractors as part of your PPP application. But that is clarity. It came out last night, and we have now clarity on that. What that also suggests, and again, brokers in particular should be in an ability to apply to the PPP to beginning today. I know Bank America's site is up, but almost no other lender's sites are up yet. That should be happening hopefully during the course of the day today, and certainly we expect by next Monday, most of the major lenders will be up and running with their ability for brokers to apply to the PPP directly online. What it also changed when they made that ruling yesterday is it obviously opens the door where we were thinking previously most agents would want to look at the PUA, and we're still waiting for guidance. I'll talk about that in a second. The PUA being the pandemic unemployment assistance. It now opens the door particularly for high volume salespeople to look at whether or not the PPP with the forgivable loan and the grant may make for the forgivable loan may make more sense for them. However, the independent contractor aspect of the PPP won't be finalized, and they're not going to be taking any applications until next Friday. So this complicates things a little bit because we don't have enough guidance. But high income agents look to have a newer option that we hadn't anticipated. But for most agents, it's going to be about the PUA. The PUA program allows the effectively unemployment insurance, including the additional $600 weekly bonus amount that extends for about 3 months, to be available to independent contractors. It is implemented at the state level by the state EDD department, and unfortunately, they have not yet given us rules. They did put some more information out late yesterday, and our hope is that they have fairly definitive rules sometime in the next day or two, and have an application that can be accessed. The current application is designed for employees, and we don't encourage people to fill that out yet, because that application, if you fill it out as an independent contractor, we are told that it is being shunted into a special section where chances are it's going to take longer and perhaps much longer than if you wait until the new application is out and apply online once they've made certain decisions and set it up in their software system. Now, for all of this, we have set up a special hotline. We now have 12 people working on it. We can't answer certain questions like, without your accountant's guidance, you're not going to know which program may make more sense for you as a broker, or for that matter, as I mentioned, the high volume agent, high earning agent. But we can help you and guide you and work you through these applications, particularly as they become more available. So please feel free to call that hotline. I don't have the number in front of me. I can pull it up, but and as I say, we have been experiencing significant delays there, but it's nothing compared to calling your lender and asking for a forbearance. The delays are much shorter than that. Right at the moment, half an hour ago, it was about a 17-minute wait. So feel free to call those, and we can work you through the two major programs, the PPP and the PUA. As I say, they're still unanswered questions, but we're prepared, and as they become clearer, we'll be able to be of direct assistance to any and all of our members.
Yeah, and I know personally this is a moving target.
Yeah.
I have two friends who are SBA lenders and talked to them on Monday, and they were told originally that the loans would be 4%, 10 years. They were excited about making the loans, and then when the actual rules came out, they were 0.5% in 2 years, and many of those lenders then backpedaled and said, we don't want to make these loans. It's going to cost us money to make them, and we have liability. So they were backpedaling and not even willing to make them, and it's changed back and forth a couple of times. I spent all afternoon yesterday trying to fill out the application for PPP, and now probably should have waited because you're telling me something different this morning. So it's
it came out I think it came out at 7 p.m. Eastern time, so 4 p.m. our time, or a little bit earlier than that.
great.
And it surprised everyone because it's clearly not similar to the language of the statute. But as I say, it changes things. Probably does, as I say, for high earning agents, it gives them another choice, and it's for some people it's going to be a close call on which one makes more sense. So we'll try to advise as soon as we get the final rules from the state, the EDD on PUA, and then we still have to wait a little bit to see exactly what the rules are going to be for independent contractors, because they're now saying applications for that portion of the PPP are not going to occur until next Friday.
Okay, a couple questions in here about what's a PPP. You guys have set up a special website that addresses all of that and has answers to the different stimulus package loans. Can you tell everybody where that is?
Yeah, the site is CAR.org //coronavirus. And if you go on that site, there's sections, including one that's titled Relief. And if you plug in that, we're updating the PPP aspect as we speak to make sure that it's completely updated, reflecting all those changes that occurred yesterday night. And that will give you a great deal of guidance. The PPP is a program that, as I say, for the independent contractors, unfortunately, still in flux. But for the broker, the rules are now starting to become more clear.
Okay, yeah, lots of questions about that. How do you feel about the EIDL?
For those of you who have employees, the EIDL is clearly something that is worth looking at as well. If you have employees, the EIDL also is going to feature some significant advantages. And so you need to really work your way through each of them. We'll try to assist you there. And I'm not 100% expert on this at the moment because I just haven't had a chance to delve into that while we're doing so many other things. But the EIDL is a program that if you have employees and you've maintained them on your payroll, or you furloughed them, bring them back within a certain period of time, offers very concrete and meaningful financial advantage.
Yeah, and the questions keep coming up about the changes. Where do we get definitive answers? And obviously, if you're listening to this, you know that there aren't any. It's changing hour by hour. So I spent 2 hours on a presentation yesterday with someone, a CFO of several companies, who had researched this thoroughly and was advising everybody how to take advantage of it. And that's changed from yesterday morning to this morning. So anybody who says they know everything about it is not telling you the truth.
We know a lot more today than we did yesterday. I will say that, particularly on the broker side. And that will be helpful. We can say with some fairly high degree of certainty that for brokers, there's enough there that you can fill out your app. And we would advise that you do so earlier than later on the PPP side. Obviously on the EIDL side, also that for those of you who have employees, that's certainly worth getting your application. And it's going to be a little bit of work on that one, but by the same token, there are some real advantages with the grants, and on the employee side, you're really being compensated for maintaining employees, even if they've been furloughed. There's some real advantage.
Okay, I know you've got to run. There's a lot of questions, specific questions about that. I encourage you to go to the website, and there's great detail there. A lot of those questions can be answered on the website. Anything else, Joel, that you want to finish up with?
Again,
that address again?
I'm sorry?
Could you give the address again? You
Sure.
rounded it.
Yeah, CAR.org/coronavirus. And that website will have all the information. Unfortunately, I don't have in front of me the phone number for the hotline, but you'll have all the information there. We're updating it continuously every day. And again, from our perspective, on the broker side, there's much more clarity than there is on the agent side. So if
We lost you. We lost your mic, Joel.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for unmuting me. On the broker side, there's enough.
That wasn't a sign that it's time to go.
Yeah, I guess so. On the broker side, please feel free to call that hotline, because on the broker side, I think we can provide quite a bit of clarity at this point.
Okay, great.
Again, thank you very much. If there's anything we can do at C.A.R., please get a hold of us. As I say, we are fully operational, and we'll do anything we can to be of assistance. Best of luck to all of you. Please be well.
Great. Thank you, Joel. You as well. Okay, it looks like we have Art Carter lined up, ready to go. Art, again, is the CEO of CRMLS, and he's going to talk about what CRMLS is doing to help us through these difficult times. So, Art, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. If that's not a staple of our lives going forward, the prerequisite of asking if everybody can hear you, pretty much been a quality of Zoom life going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get into a presentation of what CRMLS has been doing over the last couple of weeks in regards to the coronavirus and the pandemic that we're in. Chris, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
What CRMLS is doing to help real estate professionals?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically, I wanted to go through kind of what Ernie had done in regards to some background of what CRMLS has been doing. Joel announced that they've been virtual for 3 weeks. We've been virtual for about the same amount of time. We've had a disaster preparedness plan in place for 4 years now that gave us the capability of sending all of our employees to work from home, and we instituted that 3 weeks ago once some of the issues started arising with different jurisdictions talking about people staying at home, including some of the counties that our employees lived in. So we adhered to those orders, and we're open for business, same hours that we always have been. We have been receiving phone calls and information in from brokers and agents, and really kind of gauging where everybody is at in regards to the business and how things are going. And our board of directors met last week and made some decisions in regards to a number of different things that will affect the membership going forward. One of the things that pretty much was very clear in Governor Newsom's order was something that has since changed, but the recommendations from C.A.R. in dealing with the governor's office had to do with open houses. And we went into the first weekend after Governor Newsom's order, and there were still hundreds and hundreds of open houses being held open across the CRMLS system. And the board of directors, when they met and dealing with our executive team, there was some concerns that we were facilitating that activity. We did hear a couple of reports up and down the CRMLS system of police actually stepping in to open houses that had more than 10 people in them. So the decision was made across the board with all of our different platforms to pull down our open house options. And that was accomplished within the San Diego market. It took a little bit longer for the Paragon system to accomplish that, and that was done this weekend. I know each of you received documentation when it came to the open houses and what we were doing. And basically, all of that information has been removed out of the system. You can no longer search across open houses, and they're no longer going out the door to the third-party portals. The ability to live stream open houses and tours is coming to the Paragon system. It is planned for the 8th of April. It will be a separate field, and we are working with all of the outside third parties that would display that information, and they are ready to start receiving it. So hopefully you guys are paying attention to all the notifications that are coming out of both CRMLS and North San Diego. I know you guys have got to be on overload with all the information that you're receiving, but if you still have a house that's in the active status and you are looking to do an open house live stream, you will have the capability of doing that within the Paragon system on 4/8. There are some additional things that I'm going to throw out there that you guys can do right now, but there are some limitations on that. So from an open house standpoint, I think fairly clear, and this will remain in place per the board of directors decision until the stay-at-home shelter-in-place orders are lifted. Also, another thing that the CRMLS has done during this time frame is we have decided that there's not going to be an enforcement of Rule 10.7. I'm sure everybody's fully aware what 10.7 is, but you are probably aware that within the active status in the San Diego Paragon system, you are required to allow showings on your property. We are no longer going to enforce that. So if you have an active status listing within the Paragon system, you will not be required to have a showing on that property. You still want to market it. You still want to have the activity, virtual open houses, what you're doing with virtual tours and virtual showings. Those things can still occur, but we are not going to have a demand that a physical showing be allowed on the property. That is something that is a determination from a brokerage standpoint to both you as a broker and in consultation with your sellers as to what they would like to have happen. But if we receive reports that showings are not allowed in certain properties, it will not be a violation of Rule 10.7. And once again, you'll hear me say this numerous times, this element will stay in place until the shelter in place or the stay-at-home orders are lifted. The next item that we are allowing for, and once again, this will be for a short period of time, you may now include a link to an unbranded virtual tour in the remarks field. One of the things that we know that is going on across the system is giving people the ability to view properties within the different online platforms that they're using has always been limited. I know that in the case of Realtor.com and Zillow, they have always stripped that information out of the virtual, or stripped that information out of the property description, and it has been a rule violation at the CRMLS level in San Diego to do so as well. Those restrictions are being taken off. And as I said earlier, you're going to have some additional virtual showing and virtual open house opportunities to be able to communicate out to the Zillows and Realtor.coms of the world. We do have an agreement in place from Realtor.com that they're not going to strip any of this information out of the property description at this point. I'm still working on Zillow to get them to do the same thing. So anything that you need to know on that, you can have additional information available to you in the CRMLS knowledge base at the address that is listed there. So one of the other controversies that we're getting quite a bit is, why did CRMLS choose not to freeze DOM when other MLSs in the country have done so? It was a very, spirited discussion at our board of directors level. DOM, and I think there's a pretty firm belief at a unanimous belief at our board of directors level that days on market is an actual fact about a property. And freezing DOM gives an inaccurate picture of where those properties are in regards to the marketplace. There is not a pocket situation where some properties are going to be affected by this pandemic and some are not. So there's a firm belief that the consumer has an understanding and an expectation that DOM, being an actual fact about how long the property's been on the marketplace, is something that should continue to count and should continue to be pushed out to the membership of CRMLS. Everybody's going to be impacted equally, and we don't want to limit our ability to track the effects of COVID-19 on the marketplace either. A lot of times I get the comment that you're disadvantaging my seller. They want the DOM to stop. There are some ways to do that, but recognize that in the discussion point that has occurred within the marketplace, that most every seller is a buyer as well. And if we start playing with some of these figures, there is probably a degradation of the consumer's understanding of our ability to provide them accurate data. So what if my seller doesn't want to have days on market accruing on their property? They have the ability within the Paragon system to use the withdrawn status. Days on market, days on MLS will not accrue underneath this status. It's not the same as pulling a listing off the market entirely. Agents and brokers can still search across this status, and those offers of compensation still apply to the withdrawn status. So recognize that we have a number of different ways of handling this days on market issue, but it was something that the board of directors spent quite a bit of time discussing and dealing with. And this is something that even the National Association of Realtors and the Council of Multiple Listing Services has affirmed that they believe nationwide that MLSs should not be playing with DOM. And it is a slippery slope to head down, and one that we firmly believe in. Chris, I think at this point, I think I'll open it up to questions if we have any. I'm sure we do.
We've got a few coming in, but I wanted to echo that, because you look at the hot sheet every day and there's properties, new listings every day. There's properties going pending, there's properties going sold. So at what point do you take days on market out of the equation for somebody who doesn't want to show it but still wants it active on the market and doesn't want days on market? But how does that work when you still have other properties that are being listed and sold every day? So I agree that there has to be, everyone's going to look at this and recognize that during this time, that number is going to be different than it would have been if it was still January and February. Our market was rocking and rolling back then, and things were moving, and had it not been for this pandemic, we would still be in that situation. So as one of the directors,
I didn't want to throw you under that bus, but
that's okay.
You are a CRMLS director.
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions. Can you elaborate a little bit about how live stream open house work?
How, what was the question?
How live stream open house work?
So basically there's a number of different platforms, and Joel mentioned that there was a COVID-19 website that C.A.R. has. We are putting all of our updates and links back to the pertinent sections of the C.A.R. website on the CRMLS.org website as well. There's a big red banner at the top, you can't miss it, that says COVID-19 updates. I would highly recommend that you guys take a look at that. It is CRMLS-coronavirus-COVID-19-updates. We probably should come up with an easier name to give out on these presentations, but that's where we're at right now. My recommendation is go to CRMLS.org and view those things. So, in regards to the virtual open houses, the virtual showings, there are a lot of different mechanisms. We're making announcements as we get them. Your CRMLS app is releasing the capability of doing virtual showings and virtual open houses across that platform. We are allowing the links into FaceTime video, into Zoom, into those elements where people have access to do those things virtually and give people tours without having to have the buyers physically present. And there's going to be a lot more information prior to the 8th of this month that'll allow you guys to have some further ideas. You can put those virtual links into the property description going forward, but recognize that Zillow at this point is still stripping those, and we are working with them. Realtor.com is allowing them to go across. But we are working to give you guys a virtual open house and virtual showing that are time bound. There's a lot of questions I get. What's the difference between a virtual tour and a virtual open house or a virtual showing? Virtual open houses and virtual showings are time bound. Virtual tours are a recorded URL link that basically is static and is not as interactive as allowing for a virtual open house or a virtual showing. Hope that answered the question.
It did, and I know you've got a hard deadline and you've got to run. Just for those out there who have more questions, in 2 weeks, Jeff Smetana from CRMLS will be on. We'll have a video on a Friday with Jeff. And what's his title? He's the compliance?
He is director of compliance at CRMLS.
Okay, so he'll be on a couple weeks to answer more questions. One other one here before I let you go. Will the listing agent need to be at the property to conduct a virtual open house?
So, and I would defer back to kind of the best practices recommendations that C.A.R. is making. It is a broker level decision that you need to talk to your broker and your seller about. You can set up situations where the seller can facilitate that virtual open house if they have concerns and those virtual showings. So there's a number of different ways to conduct this. C.A.R.'s recommendation is that there will be no in-person open houses. There is, some recommendations that showings should be virtual if at all possible. So those are just things that you need to confirm with your seller and your brokerage about. There are a wide variety of things that are happening on the insurance side and liability issues that's why I'm telling you to bring your brokerage into those discussions.
And I'm going to talk about that a little bit next, as soon as Art's gone, about some doing business as normal and the shelter in place and what that means for us as brokers and agents. So I know you have a 11 o'clock hard deadline, so I appreciate it again, Art. Thank you for taking the time and educating us, and we appreciate all you're doing.
So can I just one last thing?
Yeah.
For any of you guys that have questions that did get answered, and you may have to give me some time depending on how many questions come in, I'm going to give you my email address. It's always a dangerous thing, but I prefer to do that. It's art, A-R-T, at CRMLS.org. So shoot those questions over to me, and myself or somebody on my staff will get answers out to you.
Great. Thanks, Art. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Chris?
Yes.
I'm going to have to go to, I wanted to give a phone number
Okay.
for people that have questions, 619 372-0226. And just if that one is busy, call 619-233-3771. And my comments all related to San Diego County. If people are questioning tax payments in other county, the penalty provisions are all administered by the local tax collector. But what I said relates to San Diego County. If you got property in other counties, it could be different.
Thank you, Ernie. Appreciate it. Okay, we've just got a couple minutes left. There were some questions that I wanted to get to. Can you still, the PPP stuff, please go to the website, cr.org/coronavirus. There's most of the information that you're going to need is there on anything that having to do with the stimulus money. I want to talk about business as usual. And last Thursday, I was on a Zoom meeting with all of the association presidents throughout the state. And during that discussion, there was the topic of what do we do with agents who are out there ignoring the shelter-in-place order? And a lot of discussion back and forth. And while on that call, the head of professional standards at C.A.R. chimed in and made a statement that I thought was pretty interesting. And I'm not taking a position either way. I just need you guys to know about it. But he said two things. One is that in his opinion, absent an order that we are considered an essential service, that holding open houses or showing property or doing things that we normally do is a violation of the Code of Ethics, particularly Article 11. And that's something you need to think about. If you're out doing business and holding open houses, that you might be in violation of Code of Ethics. And if somebody out there wants to file a complaint, you may have an issue with that. It was great that the feds on Saturday night released the information saying that we were considered essential on a federal level. The state's gone with that. But as of this time, our association attorney is not confident that that protects us. And as an association, we can't advise you one way or the other, whether the shelter in place is lifted or considered essential services right now or not. The other thing that came on that call is that several of the association presidents were brokers of companies, and they had received letters from their E&O companies stating that in the event there's a lawsuit from a transaction that is as a result of doing business during the time that we're supposed to be shelter in place, that insurance company will not provide coverage on that transaction. That was stated emphatically by several brokers. I was on a call yesterday, and Dave Walsh, who is the vice president of C.A.R., was on a call early yesterday morning, with several attorneys representing those insurance companies, and all said the same thing, that if you're doing business without being considered an essential service, that you may not be covered under coverage. So as agents, I would encourage you to check with your brokers. As brokers, I would make sure that you check with your insurance companies. As my broker of my company, I have not received that letter yet. However, apparently that's going around, and they used strong enough language that got my attention. They said, because the law of California right now is shelter in place, that if you're not following those, that it's a criminal activity, and therefore that's how they would not cover the transaction for So that's just two things to think about. I think that's all we have for today. I don't see any other questions at the end. Will NSDCAR be providing local counties regulations since they prevail? The attorney, Fred, who's going to be on next week, has sent out a letter to many of the brokers stating that based on his review, NSDCAR doesn't have those provisions. We can't provide that because it's not clear what is prevailing. I think that you need to check with your local city or your county And we have been working very diligently with the Board of Supervisors, particularly Kristen Gaspar and Jim, just draw a blank. Anyway, trying to get them to clarify because it puts us in a tough position. Are we in or are we out? That has a big effect on whether we have potential coverage in E&O or are violating our own code of ethics. So we are working to try and get clarification, but as of now, we don't have that list. Jim Desmond, there you go. Thank you, Ernie. Going over forms. Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to do a screen share here. There's 4 forms that came out, 2 on Monday and 2 yesterday. I'm not going to go over the updated COVID. It's there. It's been updated. There's a new form called an NUCC, which is a notice of unintended coronavirus consequences. And basically what it's going to say is that you have to provide proof that you're affected somehow, whether it's your loan or you have the disease yourself or medical or some reason that you can't continue, rather than just saying, I don't want to continue the transaction because of the virus situation. So those 2 forms came out on Monday. An addendum to the listing agreement came out on Wednesday. It went live on Zip Forms yesterday, and you can see that there. But what I'm going to share with you, because I think that this one is particularly relevant for anybody doing business today, this is the Coronavirus Property Entry Advisory and Declaration. We had been working at Standard Forms on a advisory to come out in June with the normal revisions that was going to cover advisories for showing property and how to protect yourself and the sellers in case the buyer gets hurt looking at property or something like that. That form was immediately modified to include what's going on today. As you can see, it talks about risk of exposure, stay-at-home orders, representation and agreement if you're a seller, landlord, or tenant, or if you're a prospective buyer, that couple things, that you certify that you're not aware that you're infected, that you take precautions, and you understand there's a risk of being out in public today and looking at property. This should be signed, according to C.A.R., should be signed by any buyers, any sellers, any inspectors, anybody that's out looking at property today. So again, Fred will go over this next week in detail. There's also on CAR.org, you can go to the training area, and in fact, I'll post a link on this. I'll find it, post a link for the pre-recorded version. There's an hour long, and they talk about all the forms in particular. If you want to get information on those right away, I'll post a link in the chat box as soon as I'm done. So let me go back and stop sharing. Oh, let me do one other share here. New share. This is don't have it. Okay, that's the main thing I wanted to share, that form. Any other questions I see coming in? I'm reading 11 right now. Can you speak more specifically about why this might be a violation? I am not professional standards. I'm an arbitrator mediator. I am professional standards, but I'm not taking a position other than what we were told is you look at standard of practice 11.4, and what it says is that realtors are to comply with local laws and regulations. And it certainly can be interpreted that the law of the state right now is shelter in place. And if you're not doing that, the opinion of professional standards at C.A.R. was that you might be in violation. This PED, does the buyer and seller sign this? Yes, I would encourage all of you to go to the link that I'm going to share with you. In fact, we'll send it out. We'll post it on the Facebook site as well. There was a seminar on Tuesday. There was one on Thursday by Neil Kalin, who's the attorney at C.A.R. They discussed all of those forms in detail, who should sign them, when they should sign them. But my understanding is that anybody who's going to go into a property, buyer, seller, tenant, landlord, inspector, should be signing that form before they go in. Please repeat those forms. Will there be a replay of this hosted? Actually, I don't know that. I don't know that that's the case. I will also give you my email address. I'm spending all day, every day, it seems like, on this with C.A.R., with NAR, with CRMLS board of directors. So there's not a whole lot of time, but if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is Chris, that's CHRIS, at cbvillage.com. That's Chris at cbvillage.com, and I'll do my best to get back with you and answer as much questions as I have. If the seller wants to stay in house during the showing, is that allowed? Read the form. It's certainly not encouraged. I know that I will also attach, I think it's in the C.A.R. site, the 4 pages of procedures, recommended procedures by C.A.R. that was just updated that Joel mentioned, that talks about how to handle any type of showing or inspection. I can't give you that advice. You need to talk to your broker. Some brokers are taking a position that nobody should be out doing anything. Some are a little more lenient. I will say that there are cities and counties who are looking at us under a microscope right now. And the idea that some agents out there think that they can just hold an open house like the good old days is just crazy. Under no circumstances should that be done right now. In my opinion, we are an essential service. In my opinion, if it's done right, there are certain things that we need to be out for, but there's a lot of this work that we can be doing remotely, that we can do online, and we should be taking advantage of that to try and protect everybody. So again, I think that's about it. I can't advise whether masks should be worn or not. I'm going to post the C.A.R. information. Let me post it right here. CAR.org/CRON coronavirus. Hopefully I typed that right. And that has the 4-page description of best practices. It also has all the information on the hotline that they are manning for the financial relief. And yes, we will be sending out notifications to join the weekly webinars. Look at the Fallbrook or Facebook. If you're not on the Facebook, North NSDCAR Facebook site, go there. A lot of information is posted there. Tommy's and the staff are doing a great job putting out lots of emails. I know you're inundated like I am. I kiddingly joke that I wish we could go back to normal because I'm busier now than I was when we were working. But starting for adult businesses must wear masks in San Diego County. It's health order. Okay, make sure you update. I would encourage you, again, just my personal message, take this time to get better. This will end. We will be back to a business. We had a great business in January and February. I think that as soon as this is over, whatever that means, we'll have this pent up demand again where buyers and sellers are going to want to be doing business, and take this opportunity to get better at something. Make sure that you're working with your skills, become better at something, listing presentations, offer presentations, social media, whatever it is. Take this time to be productive because we'll get through it. We've gotten through everything before. I've been doing this for 40 years, as I've said several times. I've seen the recession from 1995. Obviously, 9/11 was devastating. The Great Recession from 2008 to 2012, and we're still here. So we will come out of this. It's going to be different. I think some things will be better, and we just have to adapt. So that's all I've got. Thank you guys for attending again. Appreciate it. And make sure you tune in next Friday for Fred Visser, who will talk about the new forms. 2 weeks after that, Jeff Smentana from CRMLS will talk about more CRMLS issues. And if you have any questions, please email me, and be well, stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you.